Welcome into Dating at Her Age. Today we're going to talk about financial infidelity in relationships. Caitlyn caught an article on Bankrate, which is a website we love to look at when it comes to finances. And this is eye-popping. 20% of Americans who were surveyed who are in a relationship say they have kept a financial secret from their partner. So, Caitlyn, in your world, what would you consider to be a financial secret? Let's start there.
I think, well, first off, I'll just say I am super single and independent, so I have a hard time with the idea of sharing my finances with anyone. I know that that's something I will probably do one day. But so with that being said, I think really anything that's going to cause me distress or harm in my finances, something that'll affect my financial health negatively. So I don't know. That's why I might be on board with like separate accounts and allowances, but maybe large purchases without my approval. I don't like the way I said that, but without my understanding.
Without your knowledge.
Yeah.
Like you have no idea what's going on behind your back. And you, at this point, you would have had to have combined resources. Maybe you're in a long-term relationship. You're living under the same roof. Is that kind of where financial infidelity creeps in for you?
I think so. That's the level it would take. But you also look at it when you're just dating as well, like to determine if this person is someone that you see yourself building a life with, because finances are a big part of that. And so if you see them having bad spending habits and whatnot, it can always be worked on. We've talked about that. But it would probably be a flag that I would maybe need to address.
Well, we talked to Ted Rossman of Bankrate. He's somebody who talks a lot about money, and in particular about money and relationships and financial infidelity. And I like what he had to say about, how to look at it and why this could be a problem.
One of the reasons I believe we need to be transparent with our partners about money is sometimes the secret takes on a life of its own, and sometimes that actually ends up being even more harmful than the financial act itself.
That's huge. The secret takes on a life of its own. So looking a little deeper into this Bankrate survey, 13% of those asked said they've concealed a checking account. 23% say they have kept or are keeping secret debt. And 45% believe financial secrets are as serious as physical infidelity.
I mean, it affects people probably the same with the amount of trust that's involved with that. I think that with it taking a life of its own, it can just turn into a big web of secrets or lies, I guess.
Lies upon lies.
And I guess my question is just, why is it being kept a secret? That's probably more of what matters to me. Like, is it due to embarrassment? Is it due to something malicious? Is it a safety net? Because I would probably have a backup savings account. I don't think I would ever just combine all of my money with somebody.
So 15% of people, 1.5% of people in this survey say they have a hidden savings account. And that would be considered financial infidelity. I want to walk through some of these because I look at some of these in a different light. Like a secret offshore account where somebody's funneling tens of thousands of millions of dollars sounds to me like there's something more going on, maybe even possibly some criminal activity. I would want to know about that because I would want to be able to run ASAP. A secret credit card to me is worse than a secret savings account.
I agree.
A secret savings account still concerns me, so I don't want anybody to think I'm not worried. But a secret credit card worries me because then I don't have a full picture of how much debt they have and what their spending habits are.
Yeah, I agree.
And that
with
scares me.
Yeah.
The secret savings account is interesting that a lot of people keep that because I wonder, like you said, what's your motive for that? Are you worried that your partner finds out about that secret savings account and then the money's gone? Right. They just want to go out and spend it. So are you keeping that savings account secret from them because you don't trust their spending habits? And if that's the case, there needs to be a really big conversation about how that relationship looks going forward, because financial issues are some of the biggest hurdles that couples, I think, have to get through. You have to be, maybe you're not on the same page all the time, but you have to be almost sharing a page. You at least have to be in the same chapter of the book. And if you're not even in the same chapter, and then you're writing different books, and this just becomes just so messy, and it brings so much stress. But that secret savings account, I think it would bother me still, because I feel like I am trustworthy with money. I'm careful with money. It's a pattern I've had for, most of my adult life. I occasionally will go splurge. A splurge to me is, the latte instead of the straight coffee with a little creamer in it. It would bother me because if you are making financial decisions together and you don't know about that secret savings account, you don't have an opportunity to think about how are we going to invest that to maybe make even more money together. Yeah,
and that's a really good point, because the why is it secret? And I feel like in a lot of marriages, a lot of the time one person handles the finances, I think, and I think it's mostly the woman, the females.
You think so?
I don't know for sure, but whenever I talk to people about this, that's the case. So that was how my mom did it, and I know that our your co-host Dave on Dave Dujanovic has explained that. So
that his wife takes care of that.
And maybe that's just the trust of they'll just handle it, but do you actually know what's going on with those finances? And do you need to? I don't know. That's that. And if I had a savings account, I don't know if I would keep it secret. I would just maybe not allow them to have access to it because it's mine. And maybe it's
so you
money
don't put them on it.
Yeah, maybe it's just money that I've had for a long time, but they can know that it's there, but it's for me if you decide to abandon me one day.
And there may be reasons, legitimate concerns for somebody's safety as to why they're stashing some money away. That's not what this is about. That is a different situation. If somebody feels unsafe in their relationship and they're stashing some money away because they have to be able to get away, that's a different conversation. This is things are going well in the relationship, but what you don't know is they've got a $30,000 credit card on the side that they keep spending on, and they're taking money out of the checking account, saying it's for one thing, and making big purchases on another, and you're not communicating, and they're not communicating with you. We're going to get into just a minute. I want to get into, should you keep your money separate? What do people do when they get into relationships? Is it all combined? Marriage is going to be different than a dating relationship or when you're living with somebody. But I want to talk just a minute about what I thought, when I heard that 20% of Americans in relationships say that they have some sort of secret that they're keeping financially from their partner. And I just thought through, what are all of the issues that could pop up with this? What my experience has been in dating, when I'm with somebody who's in a financial situation that doesn't mirror mine, they're in a maybe financial crisis. I'll call it a bit of a financial crisis. They don't spend money the same way I do. They don't save money the same way I do. We're just again, we're not even in the same zip code. We're not even writing the same book together. I will say this, is that if you are keeping a secret, my experience is with finances, somehow it always comes out. It always comes to light. And it comes to light at the most ridiculous, inopportune times where you're trying to explain it in the moment. Like if you go to make a big purchase together, or you go to the bank together, right? Or for some reason they are able, they look at your credit score and it's, 700, it's lower than 700. It's in the low 6s or 5s. And you've told them you have no spending issues and no money issues. Well, that's an indication there's a red flag going off, right? If you're anything below 7, maybe 600, that could be a red flag. It always seems to surface at times when the other person, and then you're caught in this really weird spot, and then the trust is blown.
Yeah, and I think that it's always in any situation just better to be upfront, and it's probably an embarrassing thing if you do have some financial issues, and that is the reason people don't talk about it. I get that. Like, I have credit card debt. Am I going to say, hey, I've got a lot of credit card debt, here's the exact number on the first meeting? No, but I do feel like I'm okay to talk about that because we're all struggling, and most people that I would be dating are probably struggling as well.
We should normalize honesty.
We should.
And be accepting of it.
Yeah, it'll just make it easier down the road, because it can be, if you're dating someone who's understanding, they'll be like, okay, well, let's work on that. What can we do? What's the solution? Or you can decide if it's too much to take on and just how it's affecting it. Because I think some people, as we've mentioned before, just lack the guidance on how to manage their finances. We're all trying to figure it out. I'll say that as a 29, almost 30-year-old, that we're all trying to figure it out.
I think that's more the case in your
yeah, we've had this
age
discussion where you
right?
guys are a little bit more a red flag in your 50s.
At 50, you should sort of be settled into figuring out, how a budget works.
Yeah, you should. And at 30, I'm starting to feel that way. I'm like, are these people that I may be dating, are they going to be okay with having what Shane Stewart, financial planner who we've talked to in the past, has explained as a boring conversation about 401k, for example? I think about that a lot because I do have concern, and I also don't want to bring that up and get some sort of backlash that I'm kind of attacking them in a way. So I think about this a lot because I'm trying to be very focused on my finances right now, and I don't know if I could be with somebody who doesn't have that same priority at this point. But we can work on it together. That's always the point. But if it goes to more long-term commitment and someone has a bad spending habit and they're putting me behind on the goals that I want to achieve financially and they aren't changing their behavior or keeping something from me, that's a problem. And I don't know how you work through it. You just, if they're willing to work through it, I guess.
Well, I think, too, the longer it goes on that there's a secret, and the deeper you get into the relationship, the more in love you fall. The more you get to know, about their life and their family, and you meet their friends, and now you're embedded in the relationship, the more obligated that, at least I'll speak for myself, I would feel to figure out ways to help to bail them out.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's healthy.
No.
Because I don't know how deep the hole they've dug is.
Yeah.
And if they haven't been honest with me all along, the reality of it is if they say, oh, look, I have this credit card I haven't told you about. And I'm like, oh, a secret credit card. And they say it's, there's a $20,000 balance on it. Well, how do I know that's the truth? But I think because you love somebody, you'd feel obligated to try to help them work through it. And maybe, knowing me, I would be afraid of putting myself in a situation. It's like, I'll try to help. But then you find out, oh, there's another credit card out there, or you don't know the whole story at that point. So, obviously we always talk honesty is the best policy, but I think I would be afraid of being so knee deep in love with somebody in the relationship that I would feel obligated to try to bail them out. And I know that is not where I need to go with my life, not at my age.
Yeah, that makes sense.
58 in a couple of weeks. And I can't take that on. So that was the second thing I thought of. If somebody is keeping a financial secret from me, will I be in that spot down the road where I'm like, oh, I can help with this. I can fix them. I can fix the situation. If you're like me and you're a fixer, that's where your mind goes.
See, I know that I would. So, but I wouldn't be doing it in a way of like giving them money, but I would be giving them guidance if they are willing to accept it. So I definitely could see myself in that situation, though.
Would you get frustrated after a while?
I would get, if the patterns did not change, yes. And I think that I would have to either walk away or just choose to, lay down the law, I guess, a little bit. Just be like, hey, this isn't going to work if this doesn't get solved, because long term I don't see that being. Because if they just have bad spending habits where it seems like they're being very wasteful with their money and the priorities that they're spending money on are not aligning with my priorities and saving is not happening, that's really important to me. Because I want to be able to retire one day and just, buy a house, all these things that are long-term goals that seem very far away. But if you just actually put the effort in, it can be a lot closer.
I think, too, this is the other thing I thought of is the weight of carrying a financial secret around that you're always afraid your partner is going to find out about is got to be so heavy. Walking around nervous that they're going to find out, I guess, unless you don't have a soul or something like that, right? I mean, but most people are worried that they're going to be found out and they're not going to know how to explain their way out of it. That has got to be getting in the way of having a true relationship with somebody. And here on the other side, the person doesn't know there's a secret, but this other person's walking through life fearful that they're going to be found out. That's too much weight to carry around.
Of course, on that side, I wouldn't want to do that. I think that if you're in a relationship with someone and you've reached a certain point, why keep any secret? Like if you're at that point, this isn't first right off the bat, but if I were to find something out, like even just about my partner's childhood or something that was very significant that I did not know about, I would be like, well, why didn't you tell me that? Like, why didn't you feel safe to tell me that? So I think that's the bigger issue is just like, why do they not feel safe in that situation? Or just, is it, I don't know, guilt or embarrassment, or they just really don't care?
Yeah. Ted Rossman of Bankrate, he also talked to us about a possible solution, how this could possibly work out. And he talks about a yours, mine, and ours scenario.
Yours, mine, and ours can be a good way to manage money with a spouse or partner. 6 in 10 couples are actually doing this, and it's highest among Gen Z at 90%. What we're talking about here is mixing a lot of your money because you have a lot of joint expenses, but also agreeing that you can each have some that's yours and yours alone.
I like the yours, mine, and ours because I think this is what I would end up doing.
How does that look?
I mean, the way I imagine it is I still get my own allowance, I guess. Maybe it's my own checking. I don't know. So
your paycheck goes into your checking account.
I would see it as
his goes into his. Is that what you're thinking?
No, I mean, I guess that would depend, but I would see maybe the one main bucket account, all the money goes in there, and then you have each get an allowance for however much that is your spending money. That's when I can go get my coffees or I can go buy something without feeling guilt. Then they can do the same. But then that main bucket is where all the bills are paid, and that doesn't get touched by either of us for personal reasons unless it's been discussed. So, because I think that that's the freedom. Like we do all want to have that independence to be able to like go buy a coffee or something without asking permission, right? And so I don't know how that even works in relationships. Like at what point do you get questioned about your coffees every other day? But if you have that allowance, why does it matter?
When you can't pay the light bill.
When you can't, that's a problem.
When you can't pay the light bill, and things are, you can't go out and go grocery shopping because there's a latte a day habit going on, or somebody has another habit they're spending a lot of money on. That's when it becomes a huge problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so that means when that happens, that means you both trim your allowance down, and that money goes into the bills. That's how I would see it, because I personally, just my own budget, I give myself a very small amount of unbudgeted costs.
I call mine fun money.
Yeah, it's fun money. I just say it's unbudgeted because it's kind of something I'm not planning for, but it also gives me just a teeny bit of leeway to maybe buy something on a hard day. But I try not. It's not a lot of money.
Sometimes I buy unfun things with my fun money.
Yeah.
I was like, I have to use my fun money now to go buy an air filter for my car. Okay.
Yeah. But it's fun in the way that it
happens.
Wasn't like scheduled, I guess. But yeah, I do that myself. So that's how I would do it maybe with somebody else.
My experience being married is in marriage, it's, what's ours is ours and what's ours is ours. It's just, there's no, yours, mine, and ours. Legally, it's what's ours is ours and ours is ours. Okay. But I want to talk about in a long-term relationship that, the marriage isn't, hasn't happened yet. So how I would see doing this is separate accounts for paychecks and then a joint account. I'll be honest, I just got a cramp in my stomach saying a joint account.
I'm not on board with that before marriage. That's how I feel about it. Unless you're like homeowners together before you're married.
Okay, maybe we back off that because my stomach just turned nuts because I don't like that. And I've talked about that in the past. I don't like that idea. But there has to be some center point where, if there's a mortgage involved or rent involved, and I'm not suggesting, I'm very not putting anybody on the mortgage, that kind of thing. I'm very against that unless, there's a marriage. But where there's an account established or something established where the main payments come out of that, whether that's for, housing, utilities, if you're living together. If you're not, to me, it's like if you're not living together, there's no real reason. But
I don't even see it if you're just renting together. Like, just
think
Venmo
just
each other. It's
keep
just
it
a
use
roommate at that
Venmo.
point.
Okay.
If you're engaged,
Look at you bringing me into 2025.
well, that's just how I feel about my own money. I don't want somebody that I'm not like. I mean, you're committed to them. Maybe if it's like, you're 7 years in and you're just not married, like I could see that happening. But
so what happens though when you get to an age where you stop working? It's called retirement, and you find out your long-term lover is broke.
it's a problem. And so that's where I guess I don't know. Like, how does that work if you've done the work and saved into your retirement, but if you're sharing it with somebody and you're wanting to retire with them, like, what does that actually look like? I don't know. These are things that I'm just trying to cover for myself. So that's why I think I'm a little bit more on the, hey, this is my money. I'll combine when I'm ready, but I would have to be really, really committed to somebody to do that. And that's marriage, I think.
So looking back at this Bankrate survey, just to get my finger on the pulse of what other people are doing, and it says 62% of couples maintain some separate finances. A third use both separate and joint accounts. And this is, partners and married couples. So 34% use separate and joint accounts. 27% keep completely separate accounts. So it's more popular to use, according to the survey, both joint and separate accounts than it is to use completely separate accounts. And 38% use exclusively joint accounts. So, people are all over the map on how they're doing this. I think the thing is you have to do what's right for you. But financial secrets playing into relationships and people rating it as high as physical infidelity says to me that financial infidelity and keeping secrets is a real trust buster in relationships. And it is enough to send people probably to a therapist to discuss whether they want to stay in the relationship.
You probably need a mediator for those things. Because I also, if you're not married, maybe this is a question for our legal analyst, but I'm just curious, like, if you know anything about how that looks if you're just dating somebody and you have an account and then you break up and it goes badly and they take all your money. Do you have any, like, because a marriage, you can kind of put a halt at that, like, hey, you can't do this until we get this settled.
So it's like a phone call. Give me my money back.
Yeah, like that's the biggest concern.
I'll give you your money back. Right. When you have a joint account, they have access to that account. That's why I'm so hesitant to put anybody's name on anything with mine at this point in my life.
I wouldn't do it. And I wouldn't do that. Yeah.
Because even if they say, oh, these are all of my finances and this, here's my credit cards. Well, what if they have a secret credit card?
Yeah.
And what does that look like for me down the road? And look, I sound selfish right now.
I think it's okay.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to think too, like with my kids, like if mom ends up being a financial disaster in her 60s and 70s and 80s, I mean, how are they going to handle that? And I put that on my three kids, like they're trying to get started in life too. So I think it's like tread lightly, be super conscientious about this. And if you're the one keeping the secret, I do believe that it'll eventually come out. There's always the way out of things is through them.
Yep.
Frankly, that's the way out of you go through them.
Mm-hmm. And you have to work at it, even if it's hard.
Yeah, you got to figure out a way to get through it. Is it getting an extra job? But it's not getting an extra job or 2 or 3 jobs and then telling your lover that you're at a basketball game with your buddy. You've got to be honest about that, because we talked, earlier about the lies take on a life of their own, right? The secrets become lies, become a layer of lies. I think financial infidelity it's obviously a major problem in relationships. Otherwise, we wouldn't see numbers like 20% of Americans who are in a relationship saying they're keeping a financial secret.
Yeah, and I mean, you said that it's as big of an impact as just a physical infidelity with that. And I could see that, because I think that, if you're just cheated on, for example, that's something that obviously affects you and you have to move forward on, but it's not going to impact you as much as like your savings account being abolished.
I think it could.
You think so?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in different ways.
I mean, I understand. I'm not trying to discount it at all, but I just think that longer term, it's harder to maybe recover your finances to get back on your feet if you're like going off on your own.
I know people who've experienced infidelity. They've been cheated on in the relationship, and they're a shell of themselves. They're left devastated. I've also known people who've been financially taken advantage of, and they are just absolutely devastated. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to figure out how to turn the ship around.
Yeah, and because it comes hand, if you're married or just sharing an account, it comes hand in hand. If you're cheated on, that's one thing, but they also are going to maybe take control over the finances if they are the sole provider. So that could be like in a fight, something to hold over as well and get ripped away, as well as the relationship if that's happening. So didn't mean to like discount that at all. I know you didn't. I was just thinking, trying to get back on your feet. If you go through that, if you don't have the finances because they take that away, I could see that as a bigger problem while you're working through that. So I just think, because I have seen many people go through both of those situations.
Okay, and I think the thing is here, Caitlyn, is that we're recognizing that financial infidelity is a big deal.
It is, for sure.
It's something that we really haven't started talking about until more recently, or I haven't seen a lot of articles published about until more recently. A large focus has been on the physical infidelity, mm-hmm. which is a major problem, and it destroys families. It emotionally destroys couples. It's a huge problem. But I think now it's coming to light that financial infidelity, when you're keeping something from your your lover, is financially, it can be very devastating and have a different set of consequences.
Yeah, and I think overall that this is it's a big it should be on everyone's priority list when you're dating, to just kind of know where you're at with that and what your partner's priorities are. And it may not be right off the bat, as we talked about previously, but if you're a few months in, 6 months to a year, I think you should start having those conversations, because it's really important and it can impact you directly.